Yes, so Pratibha is writing yes. So we may go ahead from this point. So now there are steps in the scale development. So the scale development is also known, I mean, there are two parts, these steps. There is a translation and there is a validation study. So we'll see these each one by one. So now what is a scale? So scale is a set of items which is designed to measure a construct, which is also called as the latent variable. And we have learned about these latent variable. So now, whatever we measure or whatever construct we decide to measure, that goes with the standardized questionnaire. So it is, we should not try developing new scale for any measurement. So you name a scale, you search in the Google, and you will see that there is already scale which is available to measure that construct. So ideally, if you read any standard textbook that says that if that construct is available on this earth, there is a tool also which is given by someone, maybe in the different locality, maybe in the different stream, like you are measuring something of student, like attitude in medical student, attitude communication in medical student, maybe that is available with some other stream of students, maybe engineering students, maybe marketing, maybe in business, or maybe in psychology, in education, in veterinary science. So we will try to give you the link of all those things. But if you type in the Google any construct, then definitely you will see that you will find few tools of measuring that construct. So ideally, all of us, we don't develop a new scale or new tool. What we do, we validate the existing tool either by modifying few items or doing a validation study in our setup, because that tool has been developed in some other area. And right, with the example of that child abuse, we know that the social norms are different in every region. The participants are different. Their background is different. So we cannot take the same tool, and without validation study, we cannot apply the same tool in our setting. Is it clear? So in this session, our aim is entirely is to do a modification of the existing tool, although we'll tell you the theoretical step of developing a tool also. But developing a tool for measuring something and developing a scale for a construct, that is entirely different scenario. You cannot develop a scale for measuring something in a month or in one night or in 10 days or something like that. It is a very intense process, the development of a scale, and it's a multidisciplinary approach. One or two person cannot define a construct, one or two person cannot decide and design a scale. So it's a teamwork, and you should have everyone in your team if you decide to develop a scale, new scale to measure something. But all of us can do a validation study as an individual capacity. And most of us, I can say 99.9% of us do a validation study using the existing tool in our setup. We can modify it a little bit, we can pilot test it, and we validate it through all those three steps, which we'll learn, the EFA, CFA, and the PCA. So that's why we recommend, we strongly request all of you not to devise a new scale for your construct. Rather, whatever is available, you try using that in your context, in your setup with your participants. After all these 3 days exercise which you will learn, it is mandatory that all of you should do this first and then use that tool. So because this is also, it is another study, you can say, because you need to collect a lot of data to do a validation study. You cannot do it on the 10-15 individual. That is not a validation study. A validation study, you will learn about the sample size also. So how we take the sample size? So we say that minimum sample size is like 300. So in 300, if you are doing something, it cannot be a pilot study. It's a study. But for PhD and for a long research project, we do such type of research and such type of study. So now, first is to identify the construct of interest. So what is your construct which you are interested in measuring? So all of you, please type any construct in the chat box. You have done it before also, but I would request again to all of you. Students, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can I have a look at the construct which they have shown? Yes, so mental health, perception of medical students towards clinical posting in community medicine. Yes, this is a very specific research question. Health seeking behavior. Very good. So now social stigma. Now again, if you see attitude, you have to specify a little bit. Attitude towards what? Patient safety in hospital, job satisfaction. Yes. So you are very right. Now, whatever tool, whatever construct you have typed, all of you please go to the Google and type that construct and look for a scale. Is there any scale available or not? Maybe in any other stream. It may not be in the health, but maybe in any other stream. Rajat is writing happiness. So you please go to the Google, write that construct in that Google and see if you have found out something or not. Please do that. Yes, you can take few more minutes. You can unmute and answer also. I mean, I would love to hear you out. Arup, Manisha, Saraswati, Shiv Shakti, have you found out anything on Google? Van Ree, social stigma scale. Okay. Shiv Shakti is also writing he has found out something. Okay, so it's we have also tried checking it. So you will have, I was looking for stress and got perceived stress scale. Angeline is writing. Yes. PSS, and many of us have used it in the this COVID time also. Oxford Happiness Questionnaire, DAS scale. So yes, so you will see that whatever construct you define for your research purpose, you will war job satisfaction scale. Yes, Pragya is writing. So you will definitely get a scale. Maybe not in the medical science, again I said, maybe in some other stream. So just don't restrict yourself to medical field. You can search in any other field also. And I've said that education and psychology and psychiatry, they have worked extensively, social science, behavior science, they have worked extensively on these scales because their constructs are a very unique construct. Like in health, it is very simple for us to measure the kidney function test, liver function test, ECG, there is echo, there is MRI, radiology. There are so many investigation support which are very objective. But think of a psychiatrist or think of a psychology student who is, or the behavior science, where you want to measure the behavior of a person, why a person behaves in this way, or what is the attitude, or what is the communication ethics, medical ethics. As a doctor, whether I'm ethical or not, how will you measure that? So yes, it is difficult, but they have done extensive work on these issues, this behavioral issue. So you will definitely find something in other stream related to your construct. So that's why we are teaching you that whatever is available, you should modify that in your context rather than creating a new scale. Because they say that don't add confusion to the already existing scale, because then now it will be very difficult to compare your studies also with some other study. You will not find reference. So that's why it is always recommended that you use a already available scale and validate that scale. So we will entirely focus this workshop on the validation. Now, practically, a scale to measure every construct is available on the internet. It may be a paid one. So that you have to ask. And for student, I think if you mail to the people who have developed that scale, and if you give your reference, many times they give you the permission to use that scale. You should do that before you use that scale. So anybody who has developed that scale, you should take a formal permission. If that is not available if that is available in the public domain, definitely you can use that. But if it is not, then you can always ask from the person. You can communicate with them over the mail, and then you can get that questionnaire to measure that. Like we asked for a health literacy scale. We wanted to measure health literacy, and we got that scale too, although we could not complete that. But again, you get, if you say that you are doing some PhD thesis or some thesis over that, so they give you the permission to use, and they share the that scale also. So that is there. So first, whatever scale you take, so generally it is any scale you take, it is a self-administered scale. So it depends on what subjects you are going to administer it. So the first, you should follow a practical path, that is the translation. So whatever is the scale, you should first translate that scale before you do the validation study. And that validated scale, if it is available in your native language, like in UK, everybody's language is English. So they don't need to convert the scale. If they develop some scale, they will develop it in their language. But the problem in India is that we have got many languages apart from English, but the reporting is always in English. But if you want to do some study in patients or in clients who don't know the English, or maybe who know the native language, then it should be like the people in Tamil Nadu, they need to translate it in Tamil. Maybe if we are from the Hindi speaking area, we'll do it in Hindi. If your population, the native language. So the key message is that you should translate that in your native language, and then you should do the validation study on that translated scale. So this is an iterative process, we say. So you first you develop an expert committee. So you establish an expert committee, you give the questionnaire. That expert committee should be proficient in both the languages. Like if you are using Tamil as a native language and English, then the person should be knowing both the Tamil and English very proficiently. You give the questionnaire, you get a forward translation. So what do we mean by forward translation? That if already it is available in English, then you get it translated to Tamil. And then you have another set of expert who does the back translation from that Tamil to again in English. So that is known as the back translation. So there are two steps. There is a forward translation and there is a backward translation. So the backward translation is from native language to the first language or the basic language, which from where you have done the forward translation. So now there's activity time for all of you. So let's do a translation. So this is one item for the health related quality of life. It is HRQL. I think by mistake we have written HO. So it is HRQL. And the question is, to what extent do you feel that physical pain prevents you from doing what you need to do? So I hope all of you know two languages, one your native language and one English. So if you have to make a translation, not at all, and the scale is not at all, a small amount, a moderate amount, a great deal, and an extreme amount. So translate this item into your native language. And you can use this. We have given a link, that Google tool, to translate, or you can use any other tool, but you should not be using the Google translation, because Google translation is never accurate. What it does, you must have experienced it. It will give you something which is not understandable by the person. So we are putting this link in the chat box. You can change your language in that, because it is in many languages. So you can change the language. So all of you, please do this. You should copy paste that in this chat box after translation. So first you have to think, and then you have to put that content in the this link. So just you can type random. So like if I start doing it, maybe I speak Hindi, so I can say that किस हद तक आपको ऐसा लगता है कि जो ये आपका दर्द है वो आपको जो करना है उससे आपको रोकता है. So I may translate it like this initially, and maybe then I can refine it. Yes, Nitesh is writing, आपको किस हद तक लगता है कि शारीरिक दर्द आपको वह करने से रोकता है जो आप करना चाहते हैं. Yes, very, I mean, it is appropriate what I think right now. Maybe again, you need to do a pilot testing with this, because it is a self-administered, so the person should understand that language. And if you do that reliability study and all those validation study, you will be clear that whatever you are desiring to ask, whether the person is understanding or not. Any other language, like maybe Bengali, Udiya? Dr. Muhammad is writing, एक रुपए में कितने पैसे? That is right for the scale, like not at all, very small amount, a moderate amount, a great deal, and an extreme amount. Yes, that is right. But again, that passive thing, you can only write if you are asking. So many times, if the patient is not very literate, then you cannot do a self-administered. Then you need to take the interview. So it depends on what set of individual you are doing this study. So if you are administering this question as a self-administered, then in pilot testing also, you need to do it as a self-administered. Again, like Dr. Shiv Shakti is writing, आपको जो हो रहा है शारीरिक दर्द कितने हद तक आपको जो काम करना है उसमें रुकावट लाता है. Okay. Dr. Shivaji is writing in a language. Again, I think, can you say it? Bangla. Okay, Bangla. So did you get it? Like whatever Dr. Pragya is again writing, I think in which language? Udiya. Udiya, yes. Very right. So Pragya and Shivaji, what is your experience? Can you unmute and say? Because it is you who can define that whether that translation, is it understandable or not by a person who knows Uriya or Bangla. Any other Uriya or Bangla person apart from Shivaji and Pragya in this group who can
it is understandable
from Uriya or Bangla to English?
It is understandable, but the sentence structure is not correct. Maybe we have to work on that.
Just a second.
Hope I was audible.
Speaker. Yes, again, actually my speaker. Can you repeat once again?
It is understandable, but the sentence structure is somewhat that needs some modification.
Yes, any person who can do the back translation? It is understandable, but sentence structure needs modification. Yes, it will be needed because that comprehensible, whether it is comprehensible and the order of the words, that it is you or the expert person who will decide this. Yes, Pragya, what is your experience or what is your view on this, which you have done?
Ma'am, I have translated in Urdu language.
Yeah.
And I think there is some modification should be there.
Okay. So after this translation, you feel that you need to modify this. So yes, this is just a rough tool because that's why we say that it should be the expert person who should make sure that the construct which you are desiring to measure, that should be measurable by this question. Like if you ask this question in English and if you ask this question in local language, so this translation is also not a very easy job. I mean, it's an intense process and it might need 2 or 3 cycles to make a final translated version of the questionnaire. Generally, I have seen people submitting in the IRC or IC just doing the Google translation because nobody checks that. And again, this doing the back translation is very important because if you get your back translation done and if it is matching with your initial, the first, the English version, that means your the native language translation is successful. So that forward and backward translation, both the processes, and you should not omit it. That's a good exercise for all of us. And we have also worked extensively on this translation. I mean, we always do that. And it is not I must say, this is not a very easy job because you know that translation requires that person should be well versed with both the languages. So this was just an experience. Yes.
Ma'am, if a single person do the forward translation and backward translations, then it will be the same as the English version.
Yes, but we don't recommend a single person doing both because it will be biased. So it should be the other person because you know, that's why it should be the 2 person. The committee should be like you can hire 2 people, each 2. And then maybe if you are forming a committee, maybe at student level, because committee is not possible if you're doing some PhD thesis, then you can take help of your friends maybe. So like you can ask one of your friend or 2 of your friend to do a forward translation. And then again, you can ask some other who are doctors. Obviously, they should be knowing the expert means we are saying it expert. So that person should be knowing the context like health or physical pain. So that terminology or that context, her or his background, the person who is doing it should be very much similar to yours because it is you who is measuring the construct. So you should always, you can take help of your friends also if you are doing it. But again, if you're doing a project, then you can hire people, you can pay them and you can get it done. But for PhD thesis and for research purpose, individual capacity, again, it should not be the you only who should be doing this. Then there will be some bias. So you can take help of your friends, your juniors, your seniors, because if you are in a college, there are many people who are working in the department, and you can ask few of them to help you in this matter. Okay, and again, you can also help them when they need something, because it's mutual. So now once you have finalized this translated version, then you can do this pilot testing. Now there is a difference between pilot testing and pre-testing. These two are separate terms. A pilot testing is something where you are just checking the translated version and whether the person is understanding that or not. So it should be done before the EFA and CFA. And it should be done on maybe 20 and 30 participants. So what is the purpose of this pilot testing? So basically you want to check the content validity of the scale. So if you want to check the content validity, it should be first you who should be filling this questionnaire. So after that translation, you should sit with this questionnaire and first you should administer it, taking you as a participant. And that way you will check the content validity also, you will check the understandability of the questionnaire also, and you will check any other error also. So first you do this, then you can ask few of your friends to do that, and then you check for the internal consistency. So this internal consistency, which we measure by the Cronbach alpha, that can also be done on this pilot testing of 25 to 30%. But again, you may need to repeat this again when you do the EFA and CFA, that we will learn. So we may need to do it twice or thrice, this Cronbach alpha, because initially you do it, you are not sure about the dimension, how many dimension it will have. And you know that this Cronbach alpha is a unidimensional. That means if a scale has more than one dimension, you should have Cronbach alpha for each dimension. We will learn this. So this pilot testing helps you to understand the content validity of the scale and to check the internal consistency of the test. So finally, you have version 1 of the translated scale to measure your construct of interest. So if you don't have any scale to measure your construct, then you need to go to the developmental phase of a scale or a questionnaire or any construct which you want to measure. So we'll discuss that also. So first you should justify need of your new measure. Like in case you have reviewed the literature, you have Googled it, you have done the thorough literature search, you have requested people, but maybe that tool, it is very high, of very high cost, it is not freely available, and there is no mechanism that you can get that scale, then you can you can have a scale for your measure also, but it is a very resource intense task. But we'll just brief you how you can go ahead if you have found nothing and you have to develop a new scale for your construct. So these are some steps in the scale measurement. So before we go into the details of these steps, I think we should have a 5 minutes break, natural break, and then we'll again back on these on this issue of steps of scale development. So we'll again meet at 3:55. In the meantime, if anybody wants to ask something, because we are here.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Manisha?
Ma'am, suppose
yeah.
If we are doing the forward translation and then again we are doing backward translation. And
Yes.
if there is difference between backward translation and the initial statement, then how to sort out that?
You can again give it to some other person. Then again, you need to give this to for forward translation also to some other person. That means there is an inconsistency. So this needs to be repeated.
How long we will keep on repeating?
You can do it thrice. You can do it 3 times. Like forward translation, you can again get it back. Again, you can give it to the second person for forward translation. But again, that person doing that forward translation should be very much aware regarding the construct. Okay. Maybe the backward translation, even if that person is not knowing, that is okay. But the forward translation, because it is the forward translation which you are going to administer it to the your study participants. So the forward translation, you will give it to someone who knows the construct well. Okay. So you can repeat this process maybe thrice, and you can write in the methodology that you have tried, and maybe then you can check with that. Yes, so we are back. So we are back again, and we'll start with the steps of in the questionnaire or the scale development. If you want to measure some construct and you have not found out anything, and the paid version is something where you don't feel yourself comfortable paying that, then you can identify that construct, you can define, and you can develop a scale. So first is to establish an expert committee, and that expert committee should be a very known person, a very intellect person, a scholar one in that particular subject. And I have said that it is a multidisciplinary. So multidisciplinary means like if it is a construct, there should be a psychologist, there should be a psychiatrist, maybe a medical person, maybe an educationist, maybe a social person. So that should be there. Now, then again, the second step to identify the dimensionality of the construct. So we'll see these each step one by one. So the first and the most important is to identify your construct. So once you have identified your construct, there are two parts of this identification. There is a conceptualization and there is a operationalization. Now there is a difference between a conceptualization and operationalization. You cannot measure a good construct without its theoretical or the conceptual development. And again, then you have to translate this theoretical to the operational clarity or the empirical one. So this, what is this conceptualization? So now suppose this is a construct, prejudice. So if I say this word prejudice, what comes to your mind? So all of you, please write in the chat box what comes to your mind if I write this word prejudice. Chat box. So if I want to measure this construct, so let me see the chat box, what you guys have written. Preconceived notion, preformed notion, negativity, self-perceived belief. Yes, so maybe if I say prejudice, I need to define it what prejudice, which means that if someone is saying bad thing about the racial groups, then it is a racial prejudice. If women earn less than men for the same job, is it the gender prejudice? Or if doctors believe that they are superior to nursing staff, is it a professional prejudice? And at what level these prejudice are? Either this is at the high level or at a low level, because you cannot say that the prejudice is present or absent. You need to define a level for that. So answering all these questions is a key to measuring a construct correctly. So the process of understanding what is included and what is excluded in the concept of prejudice is the conceptualization process. So you need to have a conceptualization of your construct before you start making a scale. Now there's another construct, which is the socio-demographic status. Now, if you have to define this socio-demographic status, define that conceptually in the chat box. All of you, please write how you define this socio-demographic construct. Or the socio-economic, occupation, income, education, position held by an individual in the society. Yes, right? Any other responses? lifestyle of a person. So maybe this conceptual definition of a socio-demographic, you take, so how to do that? So basically you take the theoretical background in this. So construct, we need to translate it from the abstract, which is our mental idea, the mental abstractions, to the concrete, which is the measurable or testable in the form. So that is, so we take it from the theory, that construct or conceptualization, and then we operationalize it. So now the conceptual definition provides only the platform for the operational definition that is used empirically to measure construct. So what is empirically? Empirically is what you observe, what you understand, that is the empirical. And conceptual is what is there in the theory. So in theory, in various dictionary, if you see what do you mean by this socio-economic status, or what do you mean by prejudice, so you take that theory, or maybe there are very theoretical framework which are available to define this prejudice, or which define this, maybe the anxiety level. So you take that conceptual level, and then based on the empirical observation, you make it operational. So we use items to operationalize that measure, because the theoretical, you cannot measure a theoretical construct. The theoretical construct is there in the book and literature, but to measure that, you need to operationalize it in the construct which you are interested. So the construct, it can be represented by a wide variety, like happiness. We have learned about this happiness, and happiness, it can be associated with love. Happiness can be associated with the financial security. If I am having a cigarette, I can be very happy. There are many girls or many people who have this pet, or who are in habit of keeping a puppy. There will be a they will be very happy listening to a song, having ice cream, or having good food. So it can be represented by a wide variety of items. Similarly, you need, so people view construct in different way. In case of a happiness, people often adopt a perspective that focuses on actions, such as smoking cigarette, or the possessions, or such as owning diamonds. So you need to be clear in your operationalization, in your conceptualization of the construct, why you are making such choices. So now you need to translate your construct into the operational definition. And this is an iterative process. So this iterative process is like, you do it once, twice, and then it takes time to have an operational definition. So we will learn this by one example. So there is a way that how do we construct or formulate an operational definition that impacts the complexity of measurement process. So like, define some socio-demographic items which we can measure. So like, few of you have written education, occupation, income. So if you measure those items, definitely you can have a treat it like a socio-economic, maybe not socio-demographic, then socio-economic. Or even if you want to write socio-demographic, then what are the items which you should be writing? So you have already given the feedback on this socio-demographic. So that's why I'm skipping this response from you people. So now that this was first is the dimensionality of the construct. Now is third is the determine the questionnaire format, this one. So how to determine that? So whether that will be a self-administered or you are going to take the interview. So that depends on the nature of the participants. Like one person was saying ki ek rupees mein kitne paise. So if you can do that only if you ask, or you can in the instructions, you can again, if you write instructions very well, or you can if talk to the people, or like many times if we do a school-based survey, we go in the school and we explain the students and then we give the self-administered question. So like if you're doing something to a group of people with whom you can talk and then give them the scale and they fill it in the self-administered form, then you can definitely explain the instructions and the format. So it can be a self-administered. You have to decide that whether it will be a self-administered or whether it will be a interview. And again, then you have to determine the items format. So now what is this items format? So in items format, I'll take a little bit more time in this item format. because this is related to the rating scales. So rating scales, there are many types of scales which we have. So there is a scale which is known as the binary scale. So what is this binary scale? Binary scales are the nominal scales which consist of binary items. Binary items means yes and no. And that assumes only two possible value, maybe true, false, yes and no. So these are known as the binary scales, or we call it as a binary variable also. And there is something known as the Likert scale. So the Likert was a person who developed this scale, and this scale includes the Likert items, which are a worded statement. So it can have a 5-point, it can have a 7-point, 9-point, or 11-point. So in the Likert statement, there is not only two options, but there is a degree of options. So it may differ from strongly agree to strongly disagree, or depending on the choice, you can format the wording. But again, there is a shade, means there is a shade of agreement or disagreement. It is not in the form of yes and no. So coming to the Likert scale. So there could be, I have said that it could be a 5-point scale, it could be a 7-point scale, or it could be an 11-point scale. So same scale length is preferable for all items in a scale. That means if you have got 20 items in a scale, you will have the same point scale for all the item. You should not do that. For few questions you have the 5-point, and for few questions you have 7-point scale, and the rest of the question you have 11-point. No, for all the questions you should have the same item, same scale length for all the item. Am I making sense to all of you in this context? Please say yes or no. So Shivaji is writing yes. Okay. So same scale length is preferable for all the items. We will see this in a scale. Now, whenever you read any scale, so you must have encountered that you also get a lot of survey instrument, like requesting one of many colleague or many students, they request you to fill a questionnaire. So when you are reading that questionnaire, what is the exact process which is happening inside our mind? So first we read that statement, then something known as mental mapping, it happens with our brain. And then we try to see the response in the scale. So whenever we give any question or any item to a respondent, they see that question, they execute a mental map, and they match that mental map with the options which are available to them. So that's why conditions should be met. That's why you can rate this very effectively. So points, whatever points you are giving to them, that should cover the entire measurement of continuum, leaving no region in between. That means if you are asking me, like, do you know, are you aware regarding sexual harassment, or maybe are you aware regarding, or there is a workplace harassment, there is a harassment at workplace at every institute. If I say this, and if I write two scale, yes and no, so what is your state? Is it a good statement which I am giving, or good options I am giving? Because there can be shades also. There can be shades of these. So ideally what I should do, because if there is a person, if there is a if there is a person who is there in the ICC committee, you all of you know there is a ICC committee at every institute which looks after this issue. So a faculty who is there in the ICC committee, he or she will have a different answer. And a person, a student who has never been to all these issues, he will say maybe disagree or slightly agree. Or if a person who is there in that member, then definitely he will say, yes, I'm highly agree, because every day he or she is encountering one or two case of this harassment at workplace. So there should not be always this yes and no, because there is a shade of this yes and no. I may be knowing very completely, I may be knowing partially, or I'm completely ignorant, or maybe I am, somewhat ignorant. So it depends. So the points, whatever scale you offer, that Likert says that if we are trying to measure any construct, it should not be in the form of yes and no. There should be a shade or continuum of measurement, leaving no region. And the points, we always say that it is in the ordinal scale. But again, you can analyze it as an ordinal scale. You can analyze it as an interval scale also, depending on how many points you have kept in your responses. And each respondent, they must have a relatively very precise and stable understanding of the meaning of each point of the scale. Like one person has said that ek rupe mein kitne paise. So again, for a lay person, you can write in the description that he can have, and maybe you can make a scale like that, because we'll see a scale these days also, the VAS, that is a visual analog scale, that comes as a continuum. It has made itself as a interval scale. We'll see that. So the value of adding more points, it increases the reliability, and you have got a more refined version of the answer. You can categorize it, and we will see about the discriminant validity and convergent validity, the two types of validity. And having more number of these points on a scale, that helps you to have a discriminant validity also. And that means you are discriminating the response of a ICC member. In the similar example which I have given you, like, is the workplace harassment is common at workplace in every institute of India. If this is situation, then maybe if I'm the member of ICC committee is a committee which looks after this harassment at workplace, then I will say yes, I highly agree with this. But a student who has never been to all these issues, he or she may say that no, I don't agree, I disagree completely. So you can have this validity, you can have the shades of response of if you have more point. If you say yes and no, then obviously the student also knows somewhat. So that somewhat response will be missed if you give this only yes and no, and if you don't give this shades of or the grades of the responses. Am I making sense to all of you? Are you getting, this is a bit theoretical, but there is no way, like, we have to go through these concepts before we actually go into the EFA and CFA. Because, understanding the things in software, taking the output, writing the interpretation, that is important. But simultaneously, what type of scale, which point scale, whether it is a Likert scale or a 5-point scale, that is very important to understand. So now what do we understand by the clarity of scale point meanings? So for rating scales, one should have at least 5-point scale. But if it is 7-point, then again, it is better, that discriminant validity will be more, and it may be easy to specify the other shades like strongly agree, neutral, disagree, these things. So once the number of points increases, after certain limit, it becomes meaningless. That means if you increase it beyond 11, so maximum scale length is 11, which is available. If you increase it to 13, 15, then there is no gain which you are taking. So that's why after 7, if you increase, then the meaning, it becomes less clear. So like in this case, you can see there is a range which is from the strongly disagree to the strongly agree. And you can say it is an 11-point scale. So right now you will see these days, they don't write the wordings of the middle point. So just they have converted it in the form of an interval scale. That means strongly disagree, if you are keeping it at 0 or 1, maybe 0, then this will be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So this will be the spectrum of the 11-point scale. So now there are various types of Likert scale. So you can ask Likert item in the following ways, or there are how you are going to represent your result. So there is one way, like there are these are the 3 items. So you may ask, this is a 5-point scale. So this is neutral, which we keep generally as 3. Then this is maybe the 1 and 2. So strongly agree and agree. And then maybe disagree will be the 5, and strongly disagree will be the, 4 and strongly disagree will be the 5. So now you have to treat these items as an ordinal scale. And remember what we talked in the ordinal scale? Ordinal scale, we had talked that there is a definite order of the scale. So if you are treating this, because there are ways, you can treat this as a continuous scale, you can treat this as an ordinal scale. So if you are treating this as an ordinal scale, then you may have analysis like this. So you may apply chi-square, you may make 2/5 table, and you may show the association. Like you may show the association between male and female with the various categories of these items. Like this you can do, and you can apply the chi-square test. Similarly, again, if you, the other way, the second way, you can do the individual responses. You can take the individual responses of each item and you can sum the score. So you can calculate the total item score for each of this respondent, and then you treat this total item score as an interval scale. And then we can apply t-test and ANOVA. Because if you are taking this as an interval scale, then you can apply all the tests like the independent sample t-test if you are doing it in male and female, or ANOVA if you are taking 3 groups. Similarly, you can apply that. Like in this case, you can see male and female, and again, the mean score item, you can have a standard deviation, you can have a mean, and you can see the difference between these two. So this is one way. So there are 2 ways for analysis of a Likert scale. If you are treating the Likert scale as an ordinal, you can have 2/n number of tables.
3 items home.
Okay, and sorry, there was a power cut from our end, so that's why maybe. So am I audible to all of you? Let me see the chat box. Or one of you can unmute yourself and answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much, dear. So again, so I was talking that you can treat this Likert item as an ordinal scale where you will have a categories of these, and then you can make a 2/5 table, 2/7, and make an association. Or what you can do, you can treat it like a continuous scale, and you can calculate the mean score, the total, and in that case, you can calculate the mean score, and you can apply the independent sample t-test, paired t-test, or the ANOVA, depending on the need of your research question. If you are using something like this, where you have not written anything in between, like from strongly agree at 1 to strongly disagree at 7. Can you see this? So there is you can see that strongly disagree. So this one is strongly agree, and this is strongly disagree. So this strongly agree and strongly disagree, this is rated as 1 and this is rated as 7. And in the middle, you will find there is nothing. All these are only a point. So this you can treat this as a, again, continuous scale. And in this case, you can calculate an item-wise score also. So am I audible and visible to all of you now? Because Haripriya is writing there was a connection loss in between. Yes, thank you. So I was explaining you, like we have discussed, there are 3 ways where the scale interval you can put. You can give it like an ordinal that strongly agree to strongly disagree, or you can make it as an interval scale like this, where you don't define anything in between, and you can just give a score like strongly agree as 1 and strongly disagree as 7. and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in that case, you can calculate the total score for each item, and then you can apply the t-test or ANOVA for such table. So now coming to the another, that was this we have discussed the item, what was the determine the what will be the item format. Now what will be the step for these item development? So for item development, again, we have discussed that you should do a thorough literature search, and we have learned the qualitative research methods and the data collection method of qualitative research. That is the qualitative descriptive, which we do it most commonly in health. So we do in-depth interview, we do focus group discussion, and there what we do, we can interview the experts, we can interview the people to understand the meaning of the construct, to understand the items which we will define to understand a construct. So that way we can frame the relevant item. So now there are certain tips for developing an item. So we should use the short and simple sentences. We should ask only one piece of information at a time. Like, see this question. I'm asking this question, have you had headache and fever in the last 24 hours? Now, please identify the problem in this question. All of you. Yes, headache and fever together. Very right. Now this question, in last 24 hours, how many times did you not have dizziness? Identify the problem in this question. Although the hint is there, but still, yes, negatives. And that too, not have dizziness. So, negatives. Then again, have you had headaches before? So what is the problem with this question? Time frame. Very right. I don't understand what do I mean by this before. Then have you had neuropathic pain before? What is the problem in this question? Words used. Yes, neuropathic. Neuropathic is not understandable by a common man. Complex terminology. So once you have identified the item, again, you will do the pilot testing in the 20 to 30, and it is not done for the EFA or CFA. So what is the purpose? So purpose is again the same which we have learned. We check the validity and we check the internal consistency. So now once we have got these scales, so whether you are using a translated scale or you are using a newly developed scale, in both the case, you have to do a pre-testing for the scale validation. Now, what is this pre-testing? Now, there is a concept, something known as the sample size for pre-testing. Now, there is no slide on the sample size. I will just explain. Generally, we say regarding the items. We will discuss this issue in EFA or CFA also. But let's say if I have a tool which has got 25 items. So for exploratory, because in pilot testing, is there any issue with the audio? So, sorry, I think. So this sample size issue, if you see the sample size, again, in the beginning, I have made a statement that this validation study is entirely, so no, ma'am, voice is not there. Okay, is it there? So the sample size is an issue which you should.
There is a voice break, ma'am.
Okay. So should I wait for a few seconds? Is it okay now? Or still it is breaking?
Ma'am, we can switch off the video and try.
Okay, yes, I will try that. Is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So now there is an issue of the sample size. So if like I am using a WHO QL, so WHO QL, we all know that there are 26 questions, items, 26 items in WHO QL. So what should be the sample size if I want to do a validation study? So for validation study, many researchers, they say that minimum is the 300. So 300 is the minimum sample size which you should take. But again, there is a a lot of other school of thought also. Few people say that you should take at least 10 variable if you are doing the EFA, that is the exploratory factor analysis. So if you are doing a exploratory factor analysis, and if there are 25 items in your scale, you should take 250 individual. So once you have done a EFA or PCA on 250 individual, then again you will use that scale or that scale which you have done EFA and use that with another set of individual. And that ratio, maybe they say that you can take 1:5, means per item, 5 subjects. That means if you have got 25 people, and that is a minimum, that is not the optimum. So minimum you should take 125 if you have got 25 items in your scale. So am I making myself clear? And like it may range, there are,
Ma'am, please repeat the last one.
Okay, so I said that generally 300 is the minimum sample size. There are many researchers who says that there should be at least 300 samples for these pre-testing. But again, you may take depending on the number of items which you have. So if you have 25 items in your scale, you should take at least 10 sample each item. That means 250 samples for EFA. But in general also remember that for any analysis, you should take at least for one item, the optimum will be 10 individual per item. So 250 if it's a 25, if it is like a general health questionnaire, which is a 12 item. So in that case, again, 120 will be the minimum sample size, 12 multiplied by 10. Okay, this is a broad guideline for pre-testing. So for pre-testing, how many sample you will have to take, that we will discuss. For EFA, that is exploratory factor analysis, you will take 250. And again, after you have done EFA, you will again do this on the other 125 individual for CFA. So we will repeat this tomorrow also in tomorrow's session. Now you need to know about the unidimensional versus multidimensional scale. So there are many scales which they have defined that it will be a unidimensional. So what do you understand by unidimensional and multidimensional? So first see these two scales, then we'll discuss. So now just have a look at this scale. You can see this is a general health questionnaire, 12 questions. And there are 12 questions in this. So what is your opinion? Is it, how many dimensions are there in this tool or this scale? All of you please write in the chat box. So 3, Rajat is writing 3. Poonam is writing 2. Arup is writing 2. So don't get confused by this. There is a blank column, the blank row. That is only regarding the option. Poonam is not understanding. So I was asking you regarding, so in this questionnaire, can you see any dimensions? One dimension. Okay, let's see the other, the second one. Now in this case, is it a unidimensional or is it a multidimensional? Multi. Because you can see there are physical, psychological, social. So what difference you have noted in the structure of both questionnaire? In this, that is a physical, health, psychological, social relationship, and in this, GHQ. Please write in the chat box. So sections, Ekta is writing, multi-domain is mentioned, Pragya is writing. So in one questionnaire, if you see this, they have mentioned domain, like they have mentioned like physical, health, psychological, social, and environmental. And in this case, you can see that here there is no domain, a specific domain is mentioned. Now about, just see this, competency of a medical undergraduate. So theoretically, it is a unidimensional. or a multidimensional? What is this? Please write in the chat box. If I ask you competency of a medical undergraduate, is it a unidimensional or a multidimensional? So Smaraki, Shibani, Poonam, everyone is writing a multidimensional because there is not single dimension by which you can check. So this attitude, ethics, and communication. Maybe these are the broad dimensions which has been identified by the NMC also. That is the ethics, attitude, and communication. So do you think we are teaching them there are sessions in the attitude, how we have to teach them? All of you must have undergone through that document. How should we teach them ethics? How many hours in the each semester, and communication? So do you think that the attitude, ethics, and communication, it only can explain all the variance of a competency of an undergraduate student? So is it a formative or a reflective? So you have learned regarding two models, a formative and a reflective. So what is this? Is it a formative or a reflective? Yeah, dimensions and construct same. So actually this competency, this attitude, it depends. This attitude, ethics, and communication. So if you are treating it as a anything, you can think of whether it is the underlying construct. So competency is, you have to determine the level of competency, definitely. So it is a formative, not a reflective, because by the attitude, ethics, and communication, you are measuring the competency. But again, you can think the other way around also. Like, if I have to decide about the competency, then what are the items which will reflect this competency? And then this will be attitude, this will be the ethical, and this will be the communication. So it can be a reflective model also. So depending, if you want to do this, develop a tool, because we don't have any tool now. Maybe NMC has not given any tool that if we are, because we need a tool also. If you're teaching them the ethics, attitude, and communication, whether that has developed or not, maybe I would like to test that I have taught them, and there is a structured session for everything, and I have measured that initially, and then maybe after the 7th semester or after the 9th semester, I'm measuring it again. So I may plan to have a reflective scale also. So it depends whether you want to take it as a formative or you want to take it as a reflective. So let's understand this with an example. So now if this personality type, we will use this in all the examples which we are sharing. So although we have got a well-established personality test, but still we will assume that no scale exists for testing the personality of a person. Because these days, you know that hiring people, human resource, we always feel that there should be element of this personality also. Because whenever you will sit in an interview, you want to recruit someone, and you know that person is very skillful. He has got a degree, not skillful, he has got a degree of all the eligibility criteria. But what is the personality type, or what is the, whether if the person will be able to do a teamwork or not, will he be an asset to or not? Because you also see that you also meet a lot of people who are very intelligent and very skillful, but still they are not that helpful to you, or still that they are not very that much resourceful. They will not share the resources with you. So that person is less used to a organization. And in business and in all these corporate sector, they test personality a lot, because there a lot of the return or the avenues that depends on the personality type. So that's why if I want to test the personality of a person, and if I want to develop a scale, so as a researcher, what will be my first step? So my first step will be to frame a theoretical definition of a personality trait. So that will be a characteristics or a set of behaviors. So this is my theoretical construct, and I have taken it from a dictionary, that personality is a characteristic set of behavior, cognition, and emotional pattern that evolve from biological and environmental factor. So this is just a definition for workshop purpose. Now, I just want to have an operational definition, because in the steps we have learned that from a theoretical construct, we want to have a operational definition. So for operational definition, we refer the personality as an individual differences in the characteristics, pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So what will be the next step? So we have to determine the dimensionality of the construct from the theory. So from this, you can see that we have defined thinking, feeling, and behaving. So we will have at least 3 dimensions. So now, if I'm not able to identify, I'm not defining whether it will be the unidimensional or multidimensional, but all of you please write in the chat box if you have to define the dimension of this construct of personality, what will be the dimension? All of you please, whatever you think. So risk-taking behavior, honesty. So is will it be a unidimensional or multidimensional? If I want to develop, yes, it will be a multidimensional because personality cannot be a unidimensional. So I have decided that there will be more than one dimension. Then I have to determine the questionnaire format, and I have to decide whether it will be a self-administered or a researcher-administered. So that decision, it depends on you, and it depends on the type of subjects which you have. So in US and UK, they send it through mail and they get the answer back also. So depending on the type of people, literacy level, the understanding level, you may decide whether it will be a self-administered or a researcher-administered, and then you will develop the item. So you will write down many items, as many as possible. Like in this case, you can see the committee has, written all these items. Like I'm quite around stranger, then I follow a schedule, I have little to say, I feel others' emotion, I insult people, I seldom feel blue. Now this will be a contextual question. I seldom feel blue. For people in India, we don't define it. What do we mean by this blue? So maybe if I get this question, I will try to refine it. I get irritated, very irritated easily. I take time out for others. I start conversations. I'm full of ideas. I worry about things. I pay attention to details. So these are the some questions. There can be a lot many items like this. Then what is your opinion regarding the reverse coded item? Should you be having a reverse coding in your questionnaire or not? So it has got a mixed opinion, and recently they say that we should not be using the reverse coded item. But many times they say that to check the awareness of the people, because many times what we do, if we don't have time, or if the respondent wants to fill something, then he will choose a response where he'll write, highly agree or highly disagree to all the responses, or he will write 3 responses, that is the neutral to all. In that case, if you have reverse coded item, you can ask the same question in the reverse coding also. And if the person is giving the same response to both the question, then you will understand that this person is not reading the question if it is a self-administered. Let's see one example. So if you are sure that you will have a maximum number of questions in your personality trait, then you can assume that the content validity has met. So now, a few lines about the content validity, although we have discussed this. So while creating items of a construct, the researcher, they ensure that all the items should be covered to the maximum aspect of that construct. So in this example, in medical science, like we have got 21 subjects. So for MD, so if we need to crack the NEET PG, which is an MCQ based, in such case, a good content validity of paper means that it has covered all the 21 subjects while framing the question. So this is the content validity. Are you clear? So the domain which if I want to know the knowledge and application in all the 21 subjects, then all the 21 subjects should be covered by content. If I want to measure the patient satisfaction score, then I need to include a maximum possible item in the beginning to ensure that the maximum factors we have included in the patient satisfaction score. Now we need to test and evaluate the questionnaire. So in this, there are methods for this data collection. So before we do the data collection, we need to do a questionnaire appraisal system. So this questionnaire appraisal system. There is a system, we will share that tool with you. And this questionnaire appraisal, there's a checklist, and you can test your questionnaire based on this checklist. It is a very good tool. We'll share this tool with you. And then again, you can ask expert to give their expert review. And there is another, like there is a something known as the Q Aid, which is a computer software. This also helps you to understand or make you understand whether the question which you are asking, whether it is understandable to the people or not. So it measures the understanding score, and it is a software based. So you can use this software before you start the data collection to check the items of your questionnaire. So prior to pre-testing, the researcher, again, we have said the researcher should sit and he should attempt all these questions. He should be role playing it like he's the person who is filling the questionnaire, and it provides an opportunity to that person whether any ambiguity is there or not, what are the scale item, any difficulty which he is facing or not. So there is a conventional pre-testing interview, and there is a breakout room activity. And in this breakout room, all of you will have one set of question. The question is, you wish to measure the levels of statistical anxiety among medical postgraduate students. So you did an extensive literature search and you could not find any validated scale in any language, and you want to develop that. So, but again, this thing, we are giving you one questionnaire, which is known as STARS, which is the statistical anxiety rating scale. In this, there are 51 questions, and you can either delete it, the existing question, you can modify it, you can retain it, or you can add it. So there are 4 options: retention, modification, deletion, or addition. So I will request Dr. Naveen to share that sheet, Google Sheet, in the link. And there are 8 sheets. So there are 8 breakout rooms. And all of you, please work in your sheet. So what questions, if there is an existing tool, so how you are going to use that tool in your context? Like if you are holding a workshop and if you want to measure the statistical anxiety, or not even workshop, before you have started taking a session on any statistics or biostatistics, if you want to measure the anxiety in the medical postgraduate using that tool is shared. Dr. Naveen? So,
ma'am, he has already shared it.
Okay, so will you please open the breakout room? You can see that it is in the Excel. This is Google Sheet. So, are we all back to the main room? I think people are still coming. Can you hear me, all of you?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, so we have got these 8 sheets where you have in a consensus way, you have decided that what items to keep and what to delete or what to modify. So we will modify the existing tool based on your feedback, and we'll share that question to you people. And then it is requested from all of you that you fill this questionnaire, and apart from you, you send this to 3 of your friends and ask them to fill this questionnaire, so that 51 people multiplied by 3. So at least 2 of your friends. So 51 into 3, there we 50 into 3, we will have 150 responses. And we will get this response from our students also. And then we will do the content analysis, that is the exploratory factor analysis, reliability analysis, and confirmatory factor analysis on the responses which we have got. Because ideally this is the way, that is the way that you have got an existing tool. Although we did it with the 50 participants, but you create expert, and I guess all of you are expert. So you have a group of experts, then you modify that questionnaire. Maybe I will not, we are not going to modify the language, because we understand that it's the medical postgraduate student who will attempt this questionnaire. So all of them, they know English well. So they will, I mean, there's no need for this language translation. And then this tool will, this scale will be shared to you. You can get the responses, and we will share it by 6 p.m. today. And then the responses which we get, we'll share that sheet with you tomorrow, and you will do the reliability analysis, exploratory factor analysis, and this confirmatory factor analysis. And regarding that sample size, like we have got whatever item we'll see, how many reduced item we'll have, and we'll try to have at least, like, there is a range. I said 10 and 20, but even if you have 5 responses per item, we will do that analysis. Okay, and we'll see tomorrow. So minimum 3 participant per participant. So all of you, please ensure that all of you should get 3 responses filled in that Google in the, from the students, because the responses, the postgraduate student, because the title is the PG student. So you have to ask your PG student, your own colleague, your juniors. It's up to you. How do you contact them? So is it a doable task? One of you, please unmute yourself and answer. Can you do? I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. So,
Ma'am, can we modify the questionnaire?
no, that modified questionnaire based on all the 8 breakout room responses, we will share that modified questionnaire with you people. So you may have less number of items because you have written that you may like to delete it. So we are not going to use the modify and retain. A little bit modification we may do, but delete item, we will delete it. Okay, and we will give it to you.
We could not finish the whole process. We needed some more time, but maybe.
Okay, so, but have you understood the process?
Yes, yes.
Because it's the process which matters. Maybe when you will have more time, because it's just the hands-on a little experience which we want you people to have, how we go about a content, this validity check or validity study for a questionnaire or a tool. So that's the way. And one person has asked, Shivaji, I think you only asked that how to check for the content validity. So content validity is generally, it's done through the literature search and panel of experts who give their opinion. Definitely the construct validity, which is the convergent validity and discriminant validity, that we check objectively using the software and using the EFA and CFA, that we will discuss tomorrow. But this content validity is the expert opinion. And if they think that most of the response, you can again check the variance regarding that, like one item explaining the variance, the underlying construct explaining the variance in a particular item, that you can do objectively. But relatively this content validity is, in this tool you can do like, there is another way that you can do if there are other standard tool. So you can use that, there is something known as the concurrent validity. So you can use that tool and this tool simultaneously, and then you can check the sensitivity and specificity if that is the gold standard. So that concurrent validity you can do.
Madam, what is the difference between face validity and content validity?
Yes, we will discuss this all type of validity tomorrow. This was supposed to be discussed today, but I think that the theoretical explanation took a little bit more time. So we will discuss this face validity, content, concurrent, all validity we will discuss tomorrow. Don't worry. Okay, so try to get more responses. In this minimum is 3, but if you can get more, then it is good, because the more sample size, the more will be the factor analysis, the result will be good. So we are ending the meeting from our end. Yes, anyone wants to say anything, Manisha?
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, these questions will give to the PGTs in the same way, like retain, modify, delete.
No, you will give them to fill the question. We are again giving you the questionnaire by 6 p.m. You don't have to send this link. We are giving you the form. It's in the form of a Microsoft form.
Like a
And there will be response. So it is like testing them. It is like filling the response. They are not going to behave like an expert, like you people did. They will fill the response. They are the study subjects for this study. So you are,
okay, ma'am.
take it that way, you are validating this STARS questionnaire, right? And for that, you are sending this
Okay, ma'am. That means
questionnaire
you have to have a prepared.
we will share you the prepared tool by 6
Where the responses will also be there, like whether it is like
Yes,
or whatever
yes.
the
All the
response that
files
will be there in the question.
Yes, it will be there.
Okay, ma'am.
Are the instructions clear to all of you?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, then we are ending the meeting from our end, and then we'll again meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. sharp. So good day to all of you. Thank you.